Monday, December 22nd at 6 p.m. We're beginning the meeting at 6:03. Present in the room with me are Councilmember John Manette and Clerk Treasurer Jim Johnson. Jim, are we okay?
I thought we were.
I'll stop. I should have asked first anyway. Pam, you're okay. You're all set.
Okay, I'm on.
Okay.
You're on. We heard what you did to the owl.
Yeah, really. Look how fearful the camera looks. Okay, let's start. I don't know, pause. All right, let's start over, shall we? I'm calling the special meeting of the City Council of Newport to order at 6:04 now. Present in the room are Councilmember John Manette, Clerk Treasurer Jim Johnson, and then online we have Council members Carter Finnegan and Kevin Charbonneau. And we have legal counsel from SPNF, Bariah Smith, with us this evening as well.
And Carrie.
And Carrie's here. I do that every time, Carrie. I'm so sorry. So, Carrie, our financial and office administrator, is with us remotely as well. First item on the agenda is additions and deletions. John, do you have anything? Jim?
No.
Kevin? Any additions or deletions?
No, thank you.
And Carter, I see you're shaking
No,
your
thank
head
you.
no. I'm going to remove item 4 because it was a mistake. Carrie and I left it on from last week by accident, the review of finances, which we spent a lot of time on last week. So we will not be doing a review of finances tonight. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. We have minutes from the 15th, 1 week ago tonight. We have an AP warrant for the 19th of December. And we have one liquor special event request from Eden Ice Cider Company. Are there any questions about the consent agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
John's moved it. Carter or Kevin?
I'll second.
Great.
I'll second.
I got 2 seconds. I think that makes our vote kind of superfluous, but we'll do it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. The next item, I just want to share a little bit of background. I got this unsolicited, this resolution that was passed by the town of Stansted regarding action to protect Lake Memphremagog. I have read it twice. As I read it again today for the second time, they were asking basically for a show of support from Newport City Council. It's got a lot of detail in it, and what I'd love to do is assign it to one of the council members to just take a close look at and determine what the best way forward might be. It might be that we want to consider just stating that we are in support of Stansted's action. It might be that we want to try and use it as is, but change all the places it says Stansted to Newport. It might be that we want to modify it somewhat. So it feels like a pretty big agenda item, bigger than I realized when I put it on the agenda, actually. So I'm open to hearing what you all would like to do with it. I think it's extremely well written and very important, and I'd love to do something to kind of make a show of our support of our sister city. I'm just not sure that I know quite how to do it tonight.
I don't think we have enough information about the details. I mean, they're alluding to things that Casella supposedly is doing or not doing, but we have no first-hand information about any of it. And without some background, I'm hesitant just to sign on to something blindly without having the details.
Okay.
I mean, we obviously know generally what the issues at the landfill are, but we just don't know the specifics or the background or the factual support for the allegations being made in here.
In some ways, I think you're saying the same thing I am, that it feels like a lot. Carter or Kevin, do you have, I see your hand in, Pam, I'll be to you in a moment.
I definitely agree with that. This is an important issue, and to be considerate of all of the parameters surrounding it. In general, I am in support of what this means, likely, but I need to know the nuances around some of these specific actions, because I just seem to learn more and more about, So I'm interested in looking into this further if somebody needs to be tasked with it. But yeah, Kevin, what are?
I agree.
Yeah.
I know that A&R has been very vocal when there's any criticism that's unfounded. So certainly, I think each section of this really needs to be, vetted to make sure it's accurate and that we don't open up a can of worms, so to speak.
Okay, I have at least one person here in the room who'd like to add comment to that. Pam, you want to go?
Yeah, you have 7 years of active involvement with the city, A&R, organizations like DUMP and MCI. There is so much background, we could all be buried in it. It's a real issue, it's really serious, it's not going away. If anything, it will only increase. And the letter from Stansted, I read the letter, is a really important one. There are other pieces as well to factor in there. For example, Casella wants to liberate his treated leachate straight into the Black River, which is horrific, because treating it only removes 5 or 6 of the named chemicals. It does diddly squat for the rest. It's a really serious issue, and I do hope that the city takes it seriously, because it impacts on us all. We're not the ones who drink from the lake, Sherbrooke is, but we all use the lake, and if you want tourists here, then keeping a lake that is free from contaminants is important.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
I just want to say that I think it needs to be investigated, but the other thing is you should note it is the township of Stansted, which is like Orleans County, not the town.
Not the town. Thank you. Right.
So just for a correction for the record.
Yeah, that's
so
helpful.
it is a larger district than just the town. Yeah.
Got it.
And by the way, it did say at the very end, subject to adoption, which I thought was rather interesting.
Oh, so I may have missed it. I thought it had actually been adopted. No?
And this resolution is subject to the approval of the municipal council at their next regular meeting. It might be why it was delayed, because it's stated for November, I believe, early in mid-November 10th. So it might
That's
be,
helpful.
It might already have been
Yeah.
approved.
So I'm hearing there's definitely interest on the council's part to try and investigate more. And Carter, I think I'm hearing you say you'd be willing to take the lead on that. Is that right?
Yeah, yes.
I'd be grateful. You should know, like, this came to me just addressed City of Newport in the mail. And so I actually tried to write to the town of Stansted just to see if I could find out more, and haven't had any response from the mayor of Stansted. So I think it bears more consideration, and I'm certainly interested. I think it's extremely well written.
Well, at the risk of imposing on Carter, I'll make a motion that we table this pending further inquiry, and that her willingness to volunteer to be the lead in doing that investigation be accepted.
Great. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
I'll say,
I was going to say quick, Kevin, or it's going to be you. All right, I've got a motion and a second from Carter. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. Thank you. And Carter, why don't you let us know if you think that needs to come back in, 2 weeks or 4 weeks, or how you'd like to handle it, okay?
Roger that.
Great, thank you. Okay. The next item on the agenda is Executive Session 1, VSA 313, Section 313A1F, regarding that section going into executive session in order to discuss confidential attorney-client communications for the purpose of rendering legal services to the city regarding recommendations on charter revisions. I'm not speaking very well tonight. So that means we need the first motion, which, if I'm learning that correctly, is a motion that premature public knowledge, is that the one we need? Brian, will you just help me with this, please, tonight? I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, so the first motion is the council needs to find, or is whether the council should find that premature public knowledge of attorney-client communications would
Clearly place the public body or
clearly place the city council in
a
at a substantial disadvantage
Thank you. Do I have that in the form of a motion from a
So
council member?
moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I have a comment.
Hold on. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any comment from council? Okay, Ann?
You know, this is a little unusual. I mean, you're not buying real estate. This is just what should be in the charter with advice from the lawyer. I don't see how letting us know what the advice from the lawyer is in any way is going to harm the council or this. And in fact, it was my understanding that we were going to get a copy of whatever comments there were or revised charter so that we could look at it over the weekend so that we could be effectual at this meeting, more than effectual. We didn't get that. So I would really like somebody to explain how this council is going to be substantially harmed by letting us hear what the attorney says about a charter which we're all vested in and need to vote on.
So I'll say that I've had this conversation both previously and in the last week with Dave Rue. And the advice I've gotten is that in general, their counsel, their suggestion or advice is that it is wise for council to meet with them in order for them to give advice. And in many instances, the advice they give will change the way that the council is going to approach something, so that it makes sense before we try and open up to a public debate to find out whether or not we're even debating something. So that was why I chose on Friday to make their written comment a confidential matter for the council. Assuming the council votes to go into executive session, then I would expect we would have a conversation with Bariah, ask any specific questions, and we would not take any action, but we would come out and any action the council would want to take would then be discussed fully with members of the community. Go ahead, Jennifer.
So, I'm going to echo a lot of what Ann has said. I really oppose this. We are a party to this charter. You can't pass this charter without us. And we deserve the same information that you guys get. And so whatever language it is that you're considering right now, if there's legal advice as to why it's not appropriate, we deserve to hear why it's not appropriate. It's not just about the finished product. It's about the deliberation leading up to the finished product, and the whys, and the hows, and the whens. That's all critical information for us to have to make an informed vote on this charter revision. And to be honest, if you're going to close the door on us in that regard, where does that put us in terms of trust with the city? Where does that put us in terms of our mindset? It puts us in a mindset where we're saying, what are they trying to pull over on us? What are they trying to hide from us? What are they trying to sneak in the back door? That maybe we're all too busy with our, employment to pick up on because we can't go over it. We don't have sufficient time to go over it with a fine-tooth comb. And this is our charter. This is the agreement between the residents and the city council as to how our government in Newport is going to be managed and how it's going to manifest. And darn it, we deserve to hear the same advice that you guys get.
Thank you. Lori?
I'll just say ditto. And Joe Grisser has written some comments in the comments of the meeting chat. Down in the bottom right-hand corner, second icon over. You may want to talk about it. I'm just pointing that out. There it is.
Yeah, I hear it.
Can you read them into the record?
Yes. Can you give me a moment? I hear the concerns, okay? And all I'm asking is that you let me interpret it or understand it before I speak it out loud. Thank you. Joseph adds, what harm could come from premature public knowledge? How? Who is the counterparty? Public should hear this discussion. They don't make the decision, you do. It's okay if you change your minds in public. So, Carter and actually, let's just hear, Bri, do you have anything you want to say about this before we ask the council members to weigh in and then we'll have a vote?
The only thing I have to say is these council members have been elected by the public, and therefore have been given the trust of the public to make these determinations, and they are entitled to hear our advice privately, as it is legal advice regarding the charter. The public will have what the council proposes prior to any vote that the public will take on this. And like the founding fathers they created the Constitution in a closed door session under secrecy. And it's a pretty good document, and there's things that, could be changed, but there's amendment. And, they're a negotiation that people have elected these people to make. And it's their heads, and eventually this document will be scrutinized, and I'm sure a fine-tooth comb will run through it before the public votes on it. But, they're allowed some candid advice prior to deciding what document they put before the public to vote. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Brian. So Carter and Kevin and John, I'm happy to hear from you three before we try and vote on this.
Well, I think we're entitled to candid legal advice within the attorney-client privilege. Number one. Number two, whatever comes out of this discussion tonight, if it goes forward, is still subject to at least tweaking and amendment before it's put in final form on the ballot, based upon the public hearings. That's the point of the public hearings.
Thank you, John. Kevin, Carter, anything you want to add?
I think John said it well.
Yeah.
I'll say that I've wrestled with this at different moments for the last several months, and I hear the council, the advice from our attorneys loud and clear. They've been consistent since back in March or April when I had this the conversation for the first time, in suggesting that in their judgment it's appropriate to be able to offer their advice to the council, and for the council to be able to deliberate on it and either take it or not take their advice. So, I hear the questions, and if we weren't setting ourselves up for 2 full public hearings on this conversation that will obviously be fully public, it will be a fully public conversation, then I think I'd be in full agreement. I'm not inclined at this moment to encourage the council to vote in a different direction on something that our advice has been so steadily consistent on from the attorneys.
And I would say this is the first time we have consulted in an executive session with our council on the charter matters, correct? Like, all other drafts have been public and this is the only time we have discussed this. So I think, I am much looking forward to it. But yeah, it's not, and again, it's not the final draft, so no.
Okay. Unless there's further comment or conversation from the council, we'll vote. So the first vote is on the matter of premature public knowledge. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay. The motion carries. Second motion I would invite is to enter into executive session under 1 VSA section 313A1F to discuss confidential attorney-client communications for the purposes of rendering legal services to the city regarding recommendations on the charter revisions. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor, I'll just pause. Any further comment that we haven't already made about this matter? Unless it's been made.
I have a
Jennifer.
question. The clerk treasurer is not going to be included in the discussions?
It wouldn't be typical. I don't have any problem, actually, if the council would like to invite Jim into the session.
Just wondering.
Yeah, I'd say unless the council wants to include that in the motion.
I'll add that to the motion.
You've got the motion. Okay. So the motion is no. At the moment, it would just be council members.
No, it's meant the other way around.
Okay. So you would amend the motion to invite the clerk treasurer to join us.
Correct.
Okay. So
And the attorney is included?
And the attorney is included in that. Yes, Mariah, thank you.
Okay.
Carter and Kevin, are you okay with the amended motion before we vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion to enter into executive session, including Jim and Mariah, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are in executive session. Action was taken.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a
I'll
second.
have it checked out the list.
All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay. Motion carries and we are out of executive session. So here's what we want to do, y'all. John is gonna walk us through the copy of the charter that was approved by council 3 weeks ago to send to SPNF and review all the changes that the council, that is to say that Carter and Kevin and John and myself have reviewed, and that we are recommending that we're at the end, we intend to take action on these changes to amend the charter, at which point tomorrow, or probably Wednesday morning at the latest, we would have a new version of the charter that would go on the website, a new draft of the charter that would go on the website that would then be available for folks to look at carefully before the public hearing on the 5th. So tonight, in order not to be here until 2 o'clock in the morning, John is going to walk through those changes consecutively. If anybody needs a pen, I'm happy to go get it for you, so that if you want to note any questions you have, you can do that. And when we're done putting all of those changes on the table, then we'll come back and talk about any questions you have about it before the council takes action.
Can I ask a question? How can you already have decided on the changes if you took no action?
We haven't decided on them. The decision comes at the end of the discussion if we choose to go ahead with it. Okay, so there's a formal vote that will be taken on the sum total of these actions. We talked through all of them. We've taken no action to this moment. Any questions? And Carter's got it on the screen so that Joseph and Carrie and Carter and Kevin can all see what we're doing as well. So John, the floor is yours.
Okay, so if we start with section 101, it says on the second line, 1917 action resolves number 273 as amended, etc. We would just, the suggestion from the city attorney is we just change it to read 1917 action resolves number 273 and as amended, comma, continues to be. In other words, strike the 1949 reference and put as amended. And that's because there were a lot of other amendments over the years, and rather than go back and proofread umpteen session laws to make sure we're not missing anything, because there was at least one set of amendments that actually changed the city boundaries. By deleting the 1949 reference, we pick up all amendments and we resolve what could be an ambiguity or inconsistency. So they've made that recommendation. Section 103, well, I'm going to preface this by saying that the basic point of the charter is to change default provisions in state law, in that the default in state law essentially is that we have towns. So all cities happen to have charters. But in the grand scheme of things, only about 65 or 66 of the 252 towns and cities in Vermont even have charters. The others don't. They just function under general state law. So one of the other general recommendations that's been made is that we should strike any provision in here that essentially just repeats state law and neither adds to nor detracts from the powers that state law gives the city anyway. In other words, where we're simply restating state law, just take it out because state law covers the point.
So what are you taking out?
So let me get to that. I was just laying out the big picture because that principle is going to apply to a lot of their recommendations. So that we essentially edit the charter down to only those provisions that are necessary to alter the default rules in state law. So in 103, the city attorney's recommendation is that we keep paragraph A only and simply delete the rest of it, because the rest of it is nothing but a restatement of what state law says.
So you're deleting subsection B in its entirety, subsection C in its entirety.
Exactly.
And subsection D in its entirety.
And E in its entirety, because all of those sections simply restate what state law says we can do anyway.
Okay.
And let's see. Okay, so that brings us to 201. And 201.
Which is just state the obvious, John. 104 and 105 remain the same.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just skipping down to the next change.
Yep.
So 201A, literally just inserting the word city or in one place and municipal in another place is their suggestion.
I'm sorry, where?
End of that sentence.
Yeah.
After the comma, shall have all the powers and authority
Yeah.
given to and perform all duties required of municipal legislative bodies or city councils under the laws of the state of Vermont.
Yeah. Yeah. And then 201B, adding a few words so that the revised version, if you have the current one in front of you, you'll see what the changes are. Their recommended revision is to appoint, I'll just read the whole sentence.
B1, right?
B1, appoint, direct, supervise, and remove the city manager, city clerk, city attorney, and city treasurer.
Can you repeat those three others again?
It would be appoint, direct, supervise, and remove the city manager, city clerk, city attorney, and city treasurer. And so the city clerk treasurer piece is something we talked about 1 or 2 meetings ago where the original draft was different, and I think we had said we were going to ask for a language changing that.
So this then stands in the place of all that garbly-goo in our current charter with the layer of coal and all of that, right? That this is what we're down to now? Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. This is where that probably would have been.
But I'm just saying that this is, we've boiled all that garbly-goo down to these offices.
Yes,
Okay,
fair
fair enough. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Then, let's see, 203 is the next section where there's a recommendation. And in 203A, the recommended changes are in the first 3 lines. And specifically, I'll just read them. The mayor shall be the head and chief executive officer of the city government and shall have all powers and authority necessary or advisable therefore, except for the authority granted by the provisions in this charter to the city manager.
Could you please read that one more time?
Sure. The mayor shall be the head and chief executive officer of the city government and shall have all powers and authority necessary or advisable therefore, except for the authority granted by the provisions in this charter to the city manager. Okay.
And that's just the first line, John?
The first, I'm based on the printed document. It's the first 3 lines, correct? The rest of that Section A stays the same.
Okay, thank you.
Then, the next section with changes recommended would be 205. And the attorney's recommendation is that in the third line, where it says legal petition of the voters, the recommendation is to change the language to petition signed by 5% of the registered voters of the city. The next change in that paragraph is in line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, line 7. The second word, it says annual election, change it to be next annual meeting. And then later in that line, the two words legal petition again, changed to the same language I read before. And then a couple of other changes in that paragraph, starting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Basically 5 lines from the bottom, there's a phrase, it says, at the next annual election, the vacancy shall be filled. That sentence would be revised to read, at the next annual or special city meeting, the vacancy shall be filled, as opposed to saying election. And then at the very end, the last sentence that begins, if the council is unable to agree upon an interim replacement, that sentence would be revised to read, if the council is unable to agree upon an interim replacement, comma, a special city meeting shall be held within 60 days of the vacancy to fill the position.
Special city meeting or special city election?
City meeting, because the election is part of a city meeting technically. That's what we're told.
So John, given all the changes in there, I'm wondering if it might be worthwhile to just read the entire paragraph out loud. Do you want to do it?
And fill the changes in as I go?
Exactly,
Sure.
so that we understand the sense of the change.
Okay, so if we start from the top, if the mayor dies, resigns, is incapacitated, or ceases to be a resident of the city, the president of the council shall serve as acting mayor until either the next annual election or the date of a special city meeting called for by petition signed by 5% of the registered voters of the city for the purpose of an election to fill the position, period. Incapacity shall be determined by a vote of the council. If a council member other than the mayor dies, resigns, is incapacitated, or ceases to be a resident of the city, the remaining members of the council shall appoint a person to fill that position until either the next annual meeting or the date of a special meeting called for by petition signed by 5% of the registered voters of the city for the purpose of an election to fill the position. Incapacity shall be determined by a vote of the council. Incapacity shall include the failure by any member of the council to attend at least 1/2 of the meetings of the council in any calendar year. At the next annual or special city meeting, the vacancy shall be filled and the person so elected shall serve for the remainder of the term of office. If the council is unable to agree upon an interim replacement, a special city meeting shall be held within 60 days of the vacancy to fill the position.
John and Rick, one item that I think is over,
Can you just note it, Jennifer, and we'll come back to it?
it's the recall. You gotta put the recall in with the choices, dies,
Hold, just hold the comment,
Okay.
and we'll come back to it, okay?
Yeah. Okay, so the next section 206 deals with recall. And the first change there is in paragraph B, and that's just to make it consistent with election law. And that's to change the 45 days to 60 days. That's simply a correction. so that the standard rules apply. And then in 206D, the recommendation for that sentence is to shorten it up, and I'll read it in the shortened version. If the city votes for removal of an elected officer, comma, the office shall thereupon become vacant, and the city council shall follow the procedure in section 205, comma, above, period. Then the next change is in 207, last line of paragraph B, and it simply inserts the word city in front of manager. The next change proposed is in 208, and that is in paragraph B. It presently reads, discuss with the manager the appointment and removal of such officers and employees in executive session. It adds the word evaluation after appointment, so it would read appointment, evaluation, and removal. And then in 208C, second line, capitalizing the word charter in one place. Then in 209C,
Can you tell me where you're putting the charter in 208C?
wait a minute.
It simply has a lowercase c and we're replacing
We're just
it.
changing a lowercase c to an uppercase C, literally one letter.
Under
So you got
section
council.
201B5 of this charter should be capitalized. Charter should be
I'm
capitalized.
sorry, I must be in the wrong place.
208C, beginning of the second line.
My charter is little c, okay.
Yeah, so is ours. We're changing that to a big
A
C.
big C,
That's
gotcha.
the change.
That's literally it. Then 209. The recommended changes here are that section C, first sentence would be struck because that's essentially state law anyway in terms of quorum requirement. So it would read, the entire section C would read, the mayor shall vote only in the instances where the mayor's presence is necessary to attain the quorum, or in those instances where it is necessary to break a tie vote among council members. In other words, we're not changing that sentence, we're simply striking the sentence before it.
The first two sentences actually before.
Oh yes, I'm sorry, yes, you're right, the first two sentences. I couldn't read my own notes. And then subsection D and E in 209 would come out because they're effectively superseded by the public record open meeting law. So they're redundant. 210, the recommendation is adding some language after the word appointment, which is the last word in that paragraph. And the added language would read, and continue until the original term of the vacant position expires. Then we come to 302, and in the third line of paragraph A, the word charter appears with a lowercase c, and it's being recommended to change to an uppercase C for consistency. Then we go to 302B. And this one, I'm going to just read it with the changes that the attorney recommended. That seems to be the easiest way to do it. With the exception of the positions of city clerk and city treasurer, who shall be appointed by the city council, the manager shall appoint and when the manager deems it necessary for the good of the city. That's the first change. The word service would be changed to city. All City of Newport employees and other employees.
Sorry, you missed the word suspend or remove.
Oh, sorry. For the good of the city, comma, suspend or remove all City of Newport employees and other employees provided for by or under this charter, and again capitalizing charter, and then adding the words under the manager's supervision, and then putting a period there, and then the rest of that sentence would be struck, and then it would pick up with the manager shall consult with counsel in executive session of a duly warned council with a capital C meeting before exercising the manager's sole authority to suspend or remove any staff member at the level of department chief or director. And the rest of that paragraph would stay the same. Then,
Could you read that again, please? Just that first 4 sentences or whatever.
okay, so starting at the top in B, with the exception of the positions of city clerk and city treasurer, who shall be appointed by the city council, the manager shall appoint, and when the manager deems it necessary for the good of the city, the word services would be struck and replaced by city, suspend or remove all City of Newport employees and other employees provided for by or under this charter, capitalizing charter, adding the words under the manager's supervision, period. The rest of that sentence as previously appeared would be deleted. And then we would continue with the manager shall consult with counsel in executive session of a duly warned council with a capital C meeting before exercising the manager's sole authority to suspend or remove any staff member at the level of department chief or director. And then the rest of the paragraph would be
Is that
recommended.
that's
to
for
be
directive or director?
director.
And the words treasurer and clerk would be taken out.
Correct. Then the next recommended change is down in subparagraph D of that same section, and I'll just read it with the recommended changes. Subject to council approval, the manager shall have the authority, comma, shared with the city council, comma, to direct the city attorney and shall engage and retain other attorneys as needed.
Does that mean the others would be hired by the council or by the manager?
It says subject to council approval.
For both?
For
For
yes,
all?
for all. That's how I would read the change anyway. Then in C,
Can you just read D one more time?
oh, sorry. Subject to council approval, comma, the manager shall have the authority, comma, shared with the city council, comma, to direct the city attorney and shall engage and retain other attorneys as needed.
I mean, to clarify that, I think you should, if you mean it, that both of them have that authority, then you better repeat it at the point where they shall hire other attorneys as well.
Let's come back to that.
This-
Yeah. Oh, we'd have to diagram the sentence to figure that out. Anyway, E, third line in E, sentence begins, the council may meet in executive session without the manager for discussion of the manager's performance. After the word discussion, the two words or evaluation would be inserted. And then toward the end of that section, it says subdivision 201B5, changing the word subdivision to section, and then capitalizing charter again. And paragraph F, we'd be capitalizing charter again. That's a change that appears throughout the document. I'm not gonna, in the interest of time, flag every single one of them. Then, continuing down, subparagraph O in that same section, it says the manager shall recommend appointment. Currently, the recommendation is change it to the manager may recommend appointment. And the logic behind it is what happens if there's a vacancy and we don't happen to have a manager at the time. So by changing it to may, then the council can act. That's, let's see.
I have a question. So, if we're talking about hiring a city clerk treasurer, but we're talking about here about 3-year term, which is what we vote on. So is that section even,
Hold the question.
gotcha.
Yeah. And actually, okay, where am I? Lost myself now. Okay, so then we go to 401. And it's been recommended that we add a sentence to that paragraph, which reads, and this is strictly a transitional provision, obviously. In the event the currently serving clerk and treasurer leaves office prior to March 8, 2028, the council shall appoint a city clerk and city treasurer to serve out the remainder of the respective terms of office. Then in 402, that would be reworded slightly. The initial phrase in 402A, subsequent to March 7, 2028, would be struck. And so I'll read it with the changes recommended. The city clerk and the city treasurer shall be appointed by the city council with advice from the city manager with a term commencing on March 8, 2028. The city clerk and city treasurer shall serve as an officer and employee of the city, but under the city council's supervision and administrative control.
Read that last phrase again.
I'll just read the whole thing again.
Okay.
The city clerk and the city treasurer shall be appointed by the city council with advice from the city manager with a term commencing on March 8, 2028. The city clerk and city treasurer shall serve as an officer and employee of the city, but under the city council's supervision and administrative control. Then we come down to B in that same section. And I'll just read it. The same person may be appointed to both city clerk and city treasurer positions if the council so chooses. The positions of city clerk and city treasurer shall be compensated at a level of compensation to be determined by the city council with the advice from the city manager. And then paragraph C. I'll just read it. The city clerk and city treasurer shall be supervised by the city council, which will set the terms of the job descriptions, taking into account all the requirements of and duties imposed by the laws of the state of Vermont on municipal clerks and treasurers. Thus, city council's authority hereunder includes evaluation of the performance of said duties and removal from office with notice and a hearing if requested at an appropriately warned meeting of the city council. The requested hearing may be held in open session or an executive session at the election of the clerk or treasurer. Then the next recommendation is that subchapter 6 on ordinances be deleted in its entirety with the exception of a modified version of section 601, which involves deleting a few words. And so I'll read 601 with the recommendation. Ordinances shall be adopted in accordance with state law pursuant to 24 VSA sections 1972-1976, comma, as amended, period. Because the rest of it is just a recital of state law.
Does anyone know where the state law says that it's the council that determines or that approves ordinances and bylaws?
Yes.
It does say that.
Well, ordinances have to go to a voter approval, but they require council approval first.
Does it say that in that statute, in the state statute?
The statute provides for voter approval.
Okay.
Then subchapter 7,
Voter approval or council approval?
that's actually both. The council has to approve to even get it to the voters.
Thank you.
We can look.
We'll look it up, I'm sure.
Yeah, we can double check that.
Okay.
Then in subchapter 7, 701, 702, 703, 704 would be deleted in their entirety, again, because they simply state law. 705 and 706, the recommendation is keep and move them to subchapter 2 as sections 211 and 212. And although we didn't, logically when this gets recompiled, I think we just need to renumber the subsequent sections. Subchapter 8 becomes 7, etc., just to tidy that up. In subchapter 8, section 802, I think it's fair to say that we've asked for some further research on that point in terms of what provides the greatest amount of protection to the city in terms of bonding versus public officer coverage and how they work. So we need to know more about that in terms of how that would be done.
So, just for clarification, 802 is still under research.
Yes, yeah, and subchapter 8 becomes subchapter 7 with our renumbering scheme, assuming all this gets approved. And then so subchapter 9, logically all the way through, there's renumbering that needs to take place. Let's see, where are we here?
So we're up to the budget process, subchapter 9.
Right, and that brings us up to well, there are just some capitalizing of words in 904. We don't need to talk about that. 905, in section A, first line, where it says the city's meeting, the recommendation is insert the word annual to make it clear when the budget's approved. Then also in 905A, the last 3 or 4 lines, there's a sentence that begins with no specific explanation need be given. The recommendation is strike that and change it to read, in special circumstances or situations of an emergency nature, Any office, department, or agency may increase their spending over the office's, departments, or agency's allocated budget amount by not more than 5% upon written approval of the city manager.
Can you read that slower at the beginning
Sure.
again?
Yeah. In special circumstances or situations of an emergency nature, any office, department, or agency may increase their spending over the office's, department's, or agency's allocated budget amount by not more than 5% upon written approval of the city manager.
Approval of the city manager, so it doesn't have to come to.
Written approval of the city manager.
Does not have to come to the council. Okay.
In that specific case
Yes,
only.
Right.
Who is to define special circumstances or emergency?
It's a good question. Hold it.
Then in 905B, the recommendation is that we add a couple of words, so I'll read it with the additions. From the effective date of the budget, the amounts stated therein, as approved by the voters, become appropriated to the several offices, departments, or agencies, and for the purposes therein named. Then,
But the voters don't approve, I'm sorry, the voters don't approve the budget. The voters only approve an amount of money to be taken from them in taxes. We never approve the budget.
Let's come back to that.
then in 905D, the last word in it presently is purpose. The recommendation is to add the words without approval of the city council.
You said without the approval of the city council?
Right. In other words, if the council approves, you can do those transfers. Okay, then, let's see. Then, subchapter 10 is presently printed on taxation. The recommendation is to delete in its entirety, and that every one of those points is fully covered by state law, and it's unnecessary to repeat them in the charter.
So entire subchapter 10 and all subchapters?
All sections in subchapter 10 are recommended to be deleted.
I'll pose my question on the
Good,
order.
please do.
And then subchapter 11 would obviously get renumbered. And then, just because my notes are out of sequence, I've got a couple other things here. Let me find them.
No changes in 11?
Correct.
Okay.
And then, back in subchapter 2 about governance structure, based on another question that we had asked that had come up, we have some recommended language given to us about the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners that logically would slide in as section 213. And so I'll just read that. The City Council shall serve as the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners. The Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners shall meet at least once per calendar year to review the prior year's audit, approve the coming year's budget, and to alter rates as necessary or desirable. Other than this mandatory annual meeting, the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners shall be subject to the terms and provisions of 24 VSA Chapters 89, 95, 101, and such other general enactments as may be applicable thereto. And
So that's a specifically naming the council as the board of.
which state law does anyway, but the point of this is to mandate at least
That they
one,
accept that responsibility.
at least one meeting a year where the council officially sits as water and sewer commissioners.
And you said that would be section 213, I'm only seeing it.
Because we added 211 and 12 from the section
Oh, got it,
on those
got it.
commissions and boards.
All right, got
Right,
it.
so it becomes the new 213.
And then, you know, in the next couple of days, whatever gets approved out of all this will get recompiled into a new draft, so it's going to be a lot easier to follow than handwritten notes. So that's, I think, I hit everything.
I think so too, John. Okay. So I'm assuming since members of council had a long time to have a conversation with Bariah, we don't need to open it up to council first. All I would ask is that as you make comments, feel free to make a couple and then give somebody else a chance to make some, and try not to repeat other people's points. We're listening, we're taking notes. We can have conversation about them. So let's try and move through them as reasonably quickly as we can. Do you want to start us in?
Well, I just want to ask a question first. Can
Yeah.
you give us the questions that you asked the lawyers to consider? You said that you were going to send them this, plus a list of things that you wanted them to consider. I don't remember all of the ones that,
I
so can we
think
see
so. I'd be
that?
willing to, it's an email that I sent to Dave Rue that I compiled the night we all came up with those questions.
Right.
So,
And they've been addressed and we can see them, the questions?
yeah, I mean, let me just make sure that I'm comfortable with that before I say yes to a blanket statement. I'll send you the whole thing because it was attorney communication. But on the face of it, I don't have any problem with just sharing the questions that we came up
So
with.
just, I didn't keep track of all of them. I want
Right.
to make sure everything was addressed.
Absolutely.
Can I assume you'll share that with everybody who's at least here?
Sure. Yeah, I might, let me think about the best way to go about doing that, but yes. Who wants to start with the questions? Do you want to go section by section? That might make it easiest, huh? Instead of jumping all over. Let's just start with section 100. And see if anybody has any questions about any of what's in 100. The biggest change of which was to strike 4 paragraphs in 103.
May I just ask a kind of a blanket general question?
Mhm.
So I understand that, you know, Title 24, municipal and city governments, I understand that whole provision is what we're looking at. My question is, you know, we currently have a document that we all read that, you know, we kind of have all the stuff right there. So now what we're really in effect saying is, you got this, plus you need to know what Title 24 says.
Well, we've always needed to know what Title 24 says.
Sure,
And-
but-
And Title 17 and a few other titles that come into play. And so the basic, I think the basic premise is just to try to simplify it to that where standard state law applies, you just follow standard state law and don't try to deviate. You know, if nothing else, if we follow the standard rules of the game, it has the potential of lowering legal fees down the road because we don't have to ask attorneys as many questions about Newport's unique quirks.
I guess my mind says, for example, we took out all the information about, you know, the boards and those kind of things. will we have any reference to where those are listed so we can, or is it just gonna be, you know, okay, so now we have a developmental review board and I think I'm asking, I can sit and read it, but are we gonna have places where we're gonna know that the city needs these things? Some kind of document that says, I don't know.
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
I mean, I suspect the way to answer that is to come up with some kind of an action that requires that we have references to them available on the website, for instance, so that people can, on the same page you would go to find the charter, you can also find links to the appropriate sections of the state statute.
Well, the website in general needs a fair amount of update.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Other questions about, or questions in general about the first section, 100? Keeping in mind, you'll have lots of opportunity, because the next whole conversation on January 5th will be all about trying to pursue these questions. Okay, to move on to 200? Go ahead, Jennifer. Are we in 200? Is that what you're saying, Jennifer?
203, baby.
203.
Why does the city attorney feel it's necessary to add chief executive officer in there?
I asked that very question. Anybody else want to take a stab at it?
Well, I'll try. The one thing I can tell you that I found on my own is that that exact language is used in almost every other city charter in Vermont. If you think of the analogy to a private corporation, the mayor is the CEO, the city manager is the COO, the chief operating officer. And notwithstanding that it says chief executive officer, the mayor's powers are circumscribed by, one, the charter, two, if the city manager is governed by standard state law, the mayor's powers are circumscribed by that, and by the city council. So the mayor does not have the authority to be a dictator.
What happens when there's no city manager?
You mean in relation to this in particular?
Yes. You gotta put some language in there. That power needs to revert back to the council in its entirety.
It's a fair point.
Oh yeah, it's a fair point.
I said it subtly. It's a fair point.
I'm sorry, was that, what if there's no city manager, or if there's no mayor?
No, it's if there's no city manager, Jennifer's asking, then what happens to the power of the city manager? You know, the responsibilities, the authority, the duties of the city manager. And Jennifer's point, if I understand it correctly, is it needs to be clear somewhere that power reverts to the council.
In its entirety.
Or the council can appoint
Or
an acting city
well,
manager.
that's what the council does. The council at that point can then make a decision about what they want to do. So that's a helpful point.
Yeah. We'll have to look at the statute, because the actual statute might require that the council appoint an acting city manager.
Okay, what else in the 200 section? Which is now lengthened, I'll just remind you, to 213, right? You got 211 was the Harbor Commission, if I remember correctly. 212 was the ability to appoint other boards and task forces as the council sees fit. And 213 was the council
Water and sewer commission.
serving as water and sewer commissioners. Yes.
So I'm coming back to 203. Sorry,
Okay.
this is a sticking point.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
I don't believe that this language is strong enough, clear enough, in reference to limiting the power of the mayor.
I know you're saying that it's, you know, what's the term that you use, subscribed to by the provisions of the charter or whatever, but I think it needs to be, the mayor shall be the head and the chief executive officer of the city government with authority limited to the provisions of this charter. And not including the provisions that have been, you know, allotted to the city manager, or the authorities that have been allotted to the city manager. I just think it needs to be clearer and stronger so that there's no wiggle room for misinterpretation. Then it can go on and say, you know, the mayor shall use the best efforts to, you know, enforce laws and the ordinances and.
Okay.
But, and I don't know that the duties of all subordinate officers are faithfully performed. I think that needs to be struck because that oversight is awarded to the city manager.
Sorry, where are you exactly?
So I'm still in 203,
Mm-hmm.
and it says the mayor shall use the mayor's best efforts to see that the laws and city ordinances are enforced, that the duties of all subordinate officers are faithfully performed. But that has been, that's been the oversight of all the city officials, with the exception of the clerk and the treasurer, which is at the level of the council in its entirety, has been awarded to the city manager. So that should be struck, because otherwise it will be taken out of context. And it will be used in ways that are not beneficial to the city.
So the question, if that's taken out, is that if the city manager's performance is being questioned by the council on that very point, if you take that out, does the council lose its authority?
Right? No, because this is specific to the powers of the mayor. The mayor is a member of the council. It is not, the mayor does not act as the council. So it would not lose its authority because the city manager acts at the direction of the council, not the mayor, the council.
I think you need to be careful when you look at 203 and the powers of the manager under 302, because you're liable to make a dictator either way.
Right, it's the balance that we're looking for.
That's right.
And we know exactly why the balance is necessary
Yeah,
from
but
recent experience, right?
We know both sides.
Exactly. So I think you're exactly right about that.
And so, but the stopgap measure in reference to the city manager is that the city manager works at the direction of the city council. And so the city council has the authority to evaluate, discipline, and terminate.
That worked so well last time.
Yeah, we all know where it comes
And
from.
so, at certain points in time in our history, the council was unaware that they had this authority. How, I do not know, but nonetheless, that is the case. And so therefore, things got out of hand. But what you do not want to have set up is a reverse scenario, where all that power goes into the hands of the mayor in the absence of the city manager.
All I'm asking is you think about this closely, because these words will come back to haunt you when you're sued by, whoever decides to sue you, because the language says what they say.
Well, or even, I'll just say, I think your point is well taken, though I think you don't need to get to the level of lawsuit to worry about it. The truth is, we've seen what happens when we aren't clear about this balance that we're looking for.
We have, but actually lawsuit did come into it, and I'll use the example of a city manager when the council did try to say what's happening isn't okay. One council member specifically really stuck his neck out. The city manager at that point threatened umpteen different lawsuits, including age discrimination, gender discrimination, you name it, whatever discrimination. And the rest of them slunk away. So it wasn't that they didn't know that they had that role. They tried, well, one of them tried very loudly not to rehire that city manager.
So my recommendation on this question, which frankly for me is central to this entire exercise, right, obviously, and I think interestingly, all of us in the room agree about that balance that we're looking for. So one way to handle that tonight would be to accept this language, highlight this paragraph and the section 302, is it? And I haven't learned the new references yet.
302.
And put a note with the document that says the council is, interested in looking for ways to strengthen that question of balance between the two, right? We aren't interested in weighting it, I don't think, inappropriately one way or the other.
I think we probably need to go back and get some more input from the city attorney, because we're trying to align these provisions so that they match what the standard rules of the game are in the state in terms of the balance under state law, number one. And number two, there has in fact been litigation involving city managers in other communities that might serve as precedent that should be looked at.
That's fair.
And so I think we need to be careful not to create a unique situation that opens more doors by tinkering with established language.
So when you go back to David or Bariah, the part that I'm most concerned about in section 203, is when you get down to the third line, I think that there should be a period after the word enforced, and the remainder of that sentence struck. So it's not saying the duties of all subordinate officers are faithfully performed. I
Understood.
think that is.
I got that.
Leaves it one okay.
Okay,
And
so we'll
then,
go.
and then I'm also concerned about language in reference to the absence of a city manager. It's got to be put in there somewhere, that it comes back to the council in its entirety. So they're going to have to come up with something and worm it in there. It can't just go back to the chief executive officer of the city.
So I have two things. One is, in that section that Jennifer is suggesting be struck, and the duties of all subordinate officers, there needs to be an understanding of the difference of officers and city employees. What are officers? What is the actual definition of an officer or an employee? So that's one thing that I think about. And then the other piece of that is, the other thing that she's saying is to not allow the city manager to, the mayor, which has been happening in the last year and a half, take over the duties of city manager.
Correct.
However, that's what she's saying is that, so that just strikes the possibility that the mayor could serve as interim city manager, or in that role, handle those responsibilities as a representative of the council. And if so what you're doing is effectively you're taking the mayor out of that opportunity. But the fact is, maybe the person in the position at that time, the person in the role of mayor, may be the best one. I'm just saying.
I don't actually hear
the
what Jennifer
future.
was saying, suggesting that the mayor couldn't serve in that role. What Jennifer's saying, forgive me if I'm putting the wrong words in your mouth, is that it's the council's decision whether to appoint the mayor to that acting
Correct.
role.
Correct.
Right.
The mayor can't just come in and
The mayor
usurp
can't
the
just do
power.
it.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's not taking the mayor out of the
I
equation.
didn't say
It's
that.
just
What I
okay.
said was that the mayor can't
Yeah.
come in and usurp the
Understood.
power.
I think we're saying the same
understand. I
thing.
just was
Yeah.
making. I just wanted.
Okay, I'm going to move us along though, because
Yes,
I think we're saying
thank
the same thing. Have we got enough there? I actually think it's a very constructive conversation, and I think it leads us in some helpful directions. So thank you. Anything else in the 200s? I suspect. Let's see. The
So-
200s also. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
for
Jennifer.
205, the
Yeah.
only, and I understand that you make reference of it later on, right? But for purposes of like crystal clarity, I think you should add recall to the exhaustive list of vacancies in section 205.
Oh, I think I see what you're saying. Can you just tell
So
me
it
where it
says,
is? in there?
right at the starting line, if the mayor dies, resigns, is incapacitated, ceases to be a resident of Newport, or is recalled.
Mhm.
You know, and I do understand that it's like, you know, in the recall section, it talks about following section 205, but just for crystal clarity, I think you should put it in there.
Okay.
And in section 205, while we're at it,
Mm-hmm.
that was where our old and current charter said 25.
Yes, it does.
5% is obviously harder to get. When all of you people applied or wanted to be elected, you only had to get,
45.
I'm sorry,
The petitions, 45 signatures.
45 signatures. And this is more like, what,
65.
you said?
Right now, it's about 165 or
Right.
something like that. But
So
if
to-
the rolls were cleaned as they're supposed to be and that we're working toward, right now, it would probably take 140 to 150 votes.
So
to be
I
at 5%.
really, I could possibly live with the same amount as it takes to get on the ballot to begin with, but not the full 5%. We're looking for a new mayor or a new council person, and these positions should be elected and not controlled by the council.
Well, just to be clear, they aren't controlled by the council, right?
They
They're
can be.
for the rest of a term.
For
And
the
then there's
rest-
an election.
That's right.
That's right.
But,
Okay,
there's no
I think we got your point.
Yeah.
I'll just say, there was extended conversation about this. And for the moment, I think I can speak for the council because I heard them all three of them say 5% is where they want to start this conversation.
Imagine that. That will be questioned.
Fair enough.
Repeat.
That's fine. Jennifer?
If we go on to recall, recall is 15%. If 5% is bad, 15 is 3 times that. And the question would be, if you lower the, basically the 5, is there a possibility of making the recall something a little more rational?
The current charter doesn't provide for recall at all.
I realize that, so it is a step in the right direction, but if we, tie the voters' hands behind their backs, there's gonna be no reason to even throw it in there. Right.
Well, the 15 is lower than quite a few of the other towns in Vermont that are 25.
Well, that's
Yeah, but this is Newport, and
Yeah.
getting 5% of the voters to show up at an election is a victory. So walking around the neighborhood and trying to get 15% to sign, I understand that you don't want to make it a situation where somebody doesn't agree with your politics, they try to oust you, right?
Or a situation in which you are constantly dealing with recall efforts and the ability of the council to do its work is hamstrung.
Right, and I
Which
get that.
I've seen in other cities.
Yeah, I get that.
So
I
I think
just-
we're looking for some kind of a happy medium. We all agree, I think, and in fact, I know we all agree, that there ought to be a recall provision in the charter.
Yes.
The ability to recall is something that ought to be established.
How many signatures would 10% amount to?
Right
Yeah.
now, 300 and something,
360, somewhere in there.
I mean, when you look at it through the lenses of reality, and you look at the number of people that show up to our elections, and it's often between like 400 and 700.
That's right.
You're asking for about half of the people that show up to an election to sign for a recall.
To decide that they agree
it's at
that this person's
10%.
behavior is so egregious
More
Right.
that they
than
should be
half,
recalled.
Right,
basically.
and so
Okay.
I think 10%.
So we're gonna come back to it. The point is noted, and it's not one we haven't discussed, so
Okay.
let's have more conversation about it.
Okay, and in C,
Sorry, C, where are you?
the C of 206.
Yeah,
So what happens when we get to the vote? Not only do you have to get all the people registered to sign the petition, but now, if you don't have at least a third of the registered voters of the city vote, I mean, we never have a third of the voters vote for the most part, and, well, never, and forget that part. Anyway, and then the other part is that it's got to be at least as many registered voters as voted in the election wherein the officer was elected. I mean, who can control how many people are going to show up for an election. I mean, I think those two criteria are a little bit ridiculous and maybe shouldn't be there at all.
Yeah, well, these are based on other towns and existing charters that have been approved.
That doesn't mean, that doesn't mean they were
So
questioned there.
let him finish his sentence.
Yeah, and the point is just to avoid a lot of frivolous recalls and frivolous elections. I mean, elections cost $1,000 plus a pop.
Well, I can tell you that if I was interested in getting somebody recalled, you're right, I would go out and I would get the petition. And then if I showed up and fewer people than either of these showed up, and you therefore said, well, we can't recall them, I'd go out and I'd get another petition and you could have another election. And then if the right number of people didn't show up, I'd go out and I'd get another petition signed and you could have another
Yeah,
election.
and that would just boil down to pure harassment.
No, that wouldn't boil down.
So let's hold on. The point is well taken. I had the very same question myself when I read it. So let's.
To follow on to that,
Yeah.
there is an implication in what John just said that the 25 signatures is frivolous. And that's really insulting.
And the 25 signatures was based on a time when the checklist was probably a quarter of the size
Yeah,
of the current
but in fact
checklist.
that wasn't true. Jay Walsh did some research, found the numbers of the population then.
The population.
Sent them to Rick. You were of course so quick to point out that women didn't vote then, so we couldn't count them. Welcome to 2025 project. No.
So
It's not frivolous.
Pam, this
It's
isn't.
really insulting.
No one is calling it frivolous. What we're saying is, no, he didn't. The word frivolous doesn't matter. Let's move on. Okay, can we please move on? Because if this is going to devolve into a name calling expedition, I don't want to do it. Right? What I want to do is make sure that what we're doing is raising the questions that we want us to seriously consider. Ann's point is extremely well taken, which is that if we make it impossible for the right number of voters to show up and have the conversation, we haven't actually accomplished anything with a
But
recall.
dismissing our.
It's not being dismissive. It's saying we are considering the idea that it ought to be definitely much higher than 25 people. You're right. That's certainly my own opinion. I agree
But
that if you want to work at it, if you want to call for a special election, I think there should be a certain number of people in this community who have to do so. So we can have more of that conversation and see where we end up with it. But you're right. This is proposing we move that bar from 25 to right now roughly 170.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Can we move on to the next area? That's all of anything else in the 200s? I think everything else was. Am I right about that? Council meetings. We struck some of C under 209. We struck some of C, all of D, and all of E. Basically saying they are referencing state statute.
The open meeting law supersedes.
And the only thing we kept there was the provision that we have in this town, which is quite unique as I read other charters, about when and how the mayor gets to vote.
And that came directly out of the original charter.
And did you say originally that the first two sentences of C were struck?
Yes.
Yes. And the third sentence, which is the unique sentence, came out of the old charter. It's in one of those.
And then while we're in the 200s, if you want to flip up to, is it in 700? Yes, subchapter 7. We were recommending we strike the Board of Civil Authority, the Board of Abatement Taxes, Planning Commission, and the DRB because they're all covered in state statute. 705, the Harbor Commission becomes a new 211. 706 on other boards, committees, and task forces becomes a new 212.
Correct.
And then 213 is the provision that the council must accept its responsibility as water and sewer controllers. And so then if we do that, all of what is currently subchapter 7 goes away.
And the sections that you were quoting with regard to water and sewer, were they the ones that deal in the
Yes.
state statute with water rates,
Yes.
et cetera?
Exactly. The different chapters that specifically deal with water and sewer.
Jennifer?
So the language in 706 makes me a little uneasy. It says the council may from time to time establish, modify the charge and terminate other boards, committees, and task forces as may be necessary or beneficial for the administration of the affairs of the city. The reason it makes me nervous is it's completely open-ended. And it might actually be construed to take in things like the Development Review Board or the Planning Commission.
Except that it can't because those are required by state law.
Okay, so by state law, those are protected?
Correct.
So,
The point of that is to cover things like the Water and Sewer Task Force, the Finance Task Force.
I understand what the point
The Fire
is.
Department.
Believe
Task
me, I
Force.
get what the point is, but I just want to make sure that the legal language actually, causes the point to manifest.
Yeah.
So, if those are protected by statute, do we know what boards and commissions or boards and committees, is there an enumerated list of the ones protected by statute somewhere?
Well, not in a nice handy one-page document. I don't
Is
think
there
so.
any way you could create a nice handy one-page document so I can sleep at night? Just one thing.
That's what I was asking for.
Yes, I heard you asking for that.
Yeah.
We can certainly reference those for civil authority, abatement of taxes, planning commission, and DRB.
And the Civil Authority Board is defined in election law, Title 17.
Can you perhaps say unless otherwise designated by state,
Other than those designated
by state
by
statute?
state statute, that would make me feel better.
You're talking about in,
Yeah, in that, so the council may
706.
from time to time establish, modify the charge and terminate boards and commissions, boards, committees, and task forces, notwithstanding those that are mandated by, Vermont statutes
Or ones that they may establish?
I don't think task forces were even in the original charter.
No, they weren't.
They weren't.
That's what I thought.
they weren't.
They weren't.
It's basically just saying the council has the authority to make up groups if it wants to try and get stuff done.
Yeah,
And I got your language. I think that's helpful.
Change just those groups.
Yeah,
So you should be able to work it in perhaps a little less convoluted.
yeah,
Well,
got it.
The zoning went from Planning Commission and Zoning Board of Adjustment to Planning Commission and Development Review Board because when Newport updated its ordinance 2 or 3 times ago, it elected that option under state law. So the ZBA went away as part of that process.
as long as it.
Okay, can I move us along?
Yeah.
All right.
As we're protected.
So we're on to subchapter 3 on city manager.
Yeah, I have a few
Go
things I
ahead,
want
Amy.
to say about that.
Yep.
And I wanted you to see what adoption of the state statute portion does to this. So under subsection A, in the last sentence, it says, "The manager shall have the following powers and duties in addition to those powers and duties delegated to municipal managers under the laws of the state of Vermont." So the duties that are referred to in the state statute are in section 1236 of Title 24. It's called the powers and duties, in particular, of town, city, and village managers. And in subsection 2 of it, this is what the manager shall have the authority to do: to perform all duties now conferred by law upon the select board. And somewhere else it tells you the select board is like the council. Except that he or she shall not prepare tax bills, sign orders on the general fund, call for special or annual town meetings, lay out highways, parks, assess da-da-da-da, and not make appointments to fill vacancies which the select board is now authorized by law to fill. So those are the only duties that section 1236 says that basically that the select board retains. All other duties go to the city manager. And if you weren't clear there, in 1238, it says the powers, duties, and liabilities imposed upon any other department of the town inconsistent with the provisions of this chapter, meaning the one about the manager, shall be suspended and shall be conferred and imposed upon the manager. So I ask you now, if you leave that sentence in as opposed to specifying what you want the manager to do, who's signing all the contracts? You know, the contracts that council signs?
The manager.
The manager is now
Signs the
signing them.
contracts.
Well, in this section, section 2, and when you look around at other towns, many of them have a limit on that. So if the contract is for more than $5,000, then that needs the approval of the council, so that the council now keeps some control over a contract for like $2 million that's been signed by the city manager for X. And now the citizens, you know, once the contractor starts working on that, no council approval needed, and now the citizens are, you know, on the line for $2 million that may not have even been in the budget. So I think that there needs to, you can't just adopt everything and resort to this, to giving her or him all these powers without deciding which ones. In fact, you can't even say that she or he has all of these powers, because once you do that, you wipe out any that the council had before. So even if in this document you say the council has the right to approve budgets and to approve contracts over $5,000, and you know, but this, and you've also adopted these, then anything inconsistent with these powers that the city manager now has is gone. So if you as a council want to maintain your right to vote on budgets and your right to decide on contracts.
I don't think that's true at all. I think the council inherently has the right to vote on budgets and does vote on budgets.
What about contracts?
And contracts would have to be within the budget. I mean, if they're not, the council fires the city manager.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's going to be really easy. Let's be serious
Yeah,
now.
I want to go and read those sections myself. We'll ask the question. Certainly worth asking. What else on this section?
I'll let somebody else talk and I'll
Thank
look.
Other points on the section? What are we in here? 300. Yep.
Oh, Section D,
Yep.
subject to council approval, the manager shall, shared with the council, direct the city attorney and shall engage special attorneys as needed. That language is ambiguous to me. The fact that it's shared doesn't necessarily mean that it needs council approval.
It says subject to council approval. What's ambiguous about that? It's pretty clear to me. I mean, the whole point there is that you want this.
Can you read the whole thing again with the amendment? Because maybe I need to get the amendment down.
Subject to council approval, the manager shall have the authority, shared with city council, to direct the city attorney and shall engage and retain other attorneys as needed.
So,
It's a joint.
I understand, sir. But does that mean that the city manager needs to get council approval every time that they want to direct the city attorney to do something?
No, it means that they need to get council approval to engage or retain attorneys as needed. You want your city manager to be able to have a conversation.
I know, this is why I'm saying, I'm trying to
Okay,
figure
all
this out. Like how, this language is confusing to me. And I don't know where it stops and starts in terms of what they need to get approval on and what they don't. whether or not the term shared means that the council members can reach out to attorneys with questions and the city manager can too, or.
Yeah, so let's, your point is, I think your point is understood. I'm not quite, we can play with language to see if we can make it more clear. But once again, what we're searching for here is balance.
Correct.
Right? We want the manager to have some authority to be able to move around and do what they need to do.
Right.
And we want the council not to be railroaded into something they didn't want to go, a road they didn't want to go down.
Correct.
I think the operative word in that sentence is engage. That doesn't mean every phone call has to be approved. I think it means to actually, like something that happened in the last 2 years or whatever it was, we had a city attorney, but we went and found another attorney office that could assist us with things. So I think the operative word is engage.
That's fair. Contract with, I don't know, we can. Okay, what else in this section?
Section O,
Yep.
and are we looking at that in relation to the changes that were made in 402?
Yes. Yes. So the intent there is to say that the manager can make recommendations. It's the council's decision. And the council doesn't have to have a recommendation. In John's example, if there is no city manager, the council isn't hamstrung. The council can move ahead to appoint a city treasurer for it.
Okay. And I'm also to a 3-year term.
Yeah,
I think we ought to take the words to a three-year terms out,
Yeah.
given that we moved this around. That came from one of the charters where the manager actually appointed those people, and they were restricted to a 3-year term.
I'm not confident that you've totally done it by just saying may recommend appointment. Some people might think that that's the route that it goes, even though it's clear somewhere else that it wasn't. I think it may simply mean, could simply say something like, the manager can make recommendations of someone to be appointed for city clerk or treasurer, so that nobody can confuse. I think that language was initially confused to mean that it was the city manager that was going to do the appointment.
Yeah, so maybe it would clarify it also just to say something like can recommend appointment for the council's consideration and approval.
Perfect.
Yeah, that would do it too. Because you're right, it's a little foggy in there.
But it's clear in 402 that the manager, it gives advice.
Yes.
So
Yes.
okay.
So Rick, I'm going back to section B. You guys struck the for cause again.
Yep.
But you also struck the collective bargaining agreements and the personnel policy too. Is it the advice of the city attorney that by not putting them in there, those would ultimately be the controlling documents?
Yes. Yes, there would still, if there's a collective bargaining agreement, that's what would determine.
And you guys are not gonna wiggle on that for cause, are you?
I think it's highly unlikely that this council's going to wiggle on it, based on conversation I've been hearing.
So to be clear on B, for causes is gone.
Correct.
Yep, they took it out.
Yep. John, you want to say any more about that, or should we move on?
No, I think we hit it.
Okay, chapter 4. The only real major change we made in chapter 4 was to add that sentence to clarify what would happen if Jim were for any reason to be unable to fulfill his full 3-year term.
Can we move back for just a minute to 302L? When advisable or proper, the manager may delegate to subordinate officers or employees of the city of Newport any duties conferred upon the manager by this chapter.
Charter.
By this charter, the Vermont statutes, or the council. Any employee could get all of the manager's duties according to this. That isn't really, I mean, do you really want to let the manager delegate all of her duties to, I don't know,
It doesn't say any. It says to subordinate officers and employees. So the assumption, I mean, I'll just, like, if somebody's going out of town on an extended, 6-week vacation, which is not impossible given our liberal vacation policies around here, right? This basically says this person could delegate the authority of public works to the DPW and the authority of the police department to the police. I mean, that's how I would interpret
but
it.
it says
No, it doesn't say any.
delegates to subordinate officers and employees.
Any duties. The word any is in front of duties there.
Any duties.
Correct.
Conferred upon the manager. So she could give to, a police officer the duties of financial management.
So you fire her.
That's right. I mean, at some point, you're hiring a city manager because you trust that person to administrate the city. If the city manager clearly violates that trust, the immediate obvious answer is you put the person on administrative leave and say, we're going to consider terminating your contract. And the council reverts to being in control and takes over that decision.
You better have a council with a spine.
Well, that's right. That's I hope what you're seeing here is we're beginning to try and create a renewed culture of spinefulness, if that's a word. So I hear your point, Ann. I just think you want the person to be able to delegate those authorities without having to come to the council and say, this is what I want to do.
And there's another point at which you suggest that if she or he becomes incapacitated, she can delegate all of her duties to someone else. Do you want all of her duties to be delegated, or do you want that back at the council? I mean, the reason the council retained the right to appoint he or she, him or her, to begin with, was because you wanted to decide who was the city manager. Now she wants to appoint, her favorite, who happens to be the head of
What section is
DPW,
that in?
as opposed to,
Yeah, do you remember where that is, Ann? Because I remember that, but I don't.
304.
304?
Yes. A staff member to perform her duties if she's out.
The second sentence.
Yep.
Maybe you should put in the manager, comma, with the approval of the city council. I don't know if that's too restrictive or.
At least the council will be informed as to
Again,
who the
I
manager
don't-
is.
I hear you. I'm just not sure we're trying to write a document that protects us from absolutely every possible evil that could overtake us.
We've seen them.
I know.
Possibly.
Believe me when I tell you, I know. I was here for part of it. I lived through a considerable part of that agony with you. I get it. And the check and balance in that system is, one, you hire somebody you trust, and two, you have a council who's awake at the wheel and insists that they're going to pay attention to these things. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Ann's concern on this one carries some weight. And the reason is because you've got disability in there. Go try to fire somebody with a disability. So if we get, much to our unanticipated, desire, if we get a wingnut in there somehow, and suddenly they become disabled and they're going to be out for 6 months, this language empowers them to appoint somebody in their absence. I do think that on this one, when you're looking at disability incapacitation,
All right, I got your point.
you know what I'm
Lori,
saying?
what were you going to say?
No, I was just gonna say, I think looking back at the other paragraph, it's much like my boss who said, here, you do these 3 things for me because I don't
I'm
have
going to
time.
be, right.
And that happens across the board. But I do agree that in this other paragraph, it might behoove us to separate the long-term incapacitation and
So
disability from.
one way to hear that concern would be to say, to add the words, with council approval if longer than 1 month. Which I wouldn't have any problem with. Carter, Kevin, John? I mean,
I like that, yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I like that version, and we can put it in the draft, again, that will be the, revised draft and see what other folks think, but I think that's a nice, happy middle ground.
it's not lost on me that we just went through an incapacitation that lasted for
Right.
almost a year, and by the time we were done, well over a year. So I understand your point, and I appreciate the fact that there's solid unanimity across the room about it. So, okay, can we move on?
I would just say I'm more concerned about the term incapacitated than disability.
What does that even mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just was reading it, the difference between the two.
And for the record, that's not where my brain was at, okay? For the record, Rick. I think you're making an assumption there. There was a lot more to that story than one understands.
No, I
One
understand.
realizes.
I understand.
But no, it does concern me that if you get, if you get a wingnut in there, you're giving unbridled control
I
to
got
that
it.
person. And-
Jennifer Hopkins, I'd be grateful for some reflection with you later on about disability and capacity. Let's
Well,
not
it's
do it tonight.
interesting, disability is a functional limitation, very short. Incapacitation, unable to work because of a medical condition.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think either one needs a qualifier.
Okay, let's,
Vacation's one thing, but
okay.
either of the other two are a little more serious.
And is a month too long, do you think, Rick? Or is that,
I don't. A month of vacation really is a common occurrence for somebody to go away. That's not unheard of.
I never come back.
Or you can just change the concept entirely but it's just paraphrasing something along the lines of the manager needs to, or the council simply needs to designate somebody in the absence of the manager for any of those reasons and just throw it back at the council.
And obviously the
with a
manager would
recommendation,
recommend.
Which they could do on the recommendation of a manager.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, is that what you all want? Carter, is that okay? I know, anything, just let me go on vacation.
And what happens if the manager has previously appointed a staff member as assistant manager or deputy manager? Do you live with it, or do you do?
No, I think probably, we don't even have that position in this city.
We could just take that right out and have it go back to the council, as I just said.
Yeah.
Okay,
That would be probably the simplest, that, then the council has responsibilities.
Right.
okay. Got it. Can we move on? Subchapter, we're up to 5, I think, right?
Yeah.
City meetings, elections, no changes recommended there. I don't think it's any change from our standard practice. Then chapter 6, we're recommending that we strike the entire thing except a portion of the very first sentence. Ordinances shall be adopted in accordance with state law pursuant to 24 VSA, etc., as amended, period. Everything else disappears. Okay to move on? Subchapter 7, I think we've already discussed enough, right?
Yes.
All right. Subchapter 8, administration. The big thing there for the council members was just trying to make sure we understand what actually protects the city to the greatest extent, not to mention its employees or council members. Is it to have individual bonds, or is the VLCT offered passive blanket actually just as effective or even more effective? So we've asked Bariah to do some research about that, including reaching out to VLCT to get some answers.
and some, okay.
Bonding has 2 options as well, which is a blanket bond or individual, and the real issue is the bonding concept versus the passive concept, which is better.
Right. Yep.
I have two issues or questions. The first one is, some of the statutes speak to bonds, like treasurer and stuff like that, but do they also allow for the other type of insurance through VLTC? Do we know? I don't recall.
There are at least some of the statutes, and I can't remember them all.
Yeah, and I
in
can't
detail,
either.
But at least some of them, yeah, do provide for, sometimes it's called crime insurance.
Right.
In lieu of a bond, there's a whole series of statutes.
So we're gonna want to verify that the statutes allow it,
Yeah,
if
there's a
whatever you
whole series
light
that
on,
give you
okay?
the option.
The other
Hold on,
issue,
Jennifer, hold on.
Yeah, no, that's part of the point of the question to ask the city attorney. That's what we're getting at.
Okay.
Precisely.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
the added issue is that somebody has to do due diligence in reference to whatever company ultimately ends up being the bonding company or the crime insurance company or whatever. If it's offered through VLTC, that's a whole different ballgame because it's somewhat vetted by them. But I know that Western Surety, which was the company chosen for the bonds for this council, when I did background research on them, those bonds were not worth the paper they were written on because they never paid their claims.
Yeah, so I have questions about that too.
So I'm just
we all
saying,
agree that there's a major set of questions here.
yeah, I mean,
Let us work it
you
out.
got to do some background
That's
research
the
on
whole
that stuff.
I hope, honestly, we cover it through passive. Which I
Through
think
the
would be worlds
VLTC
easier.
stuff, yeah,
Through
and-
VLCT and it's a done deal and we just stop.
And I
some
wouldn't
of it.
disagree with that, but
So-
if it's not, you got to dig deeper on that stuff because the taxpayers are horribly at risk.
Okay, I'm moving on to old section, subchapter 9, which has now been renumbered who knows what, on budget process. And we did not make substantial changes in any of that. So it's just a question of whether you have questions about what was in the original proposal.
We did get rid of no specific explanation maybe given for
We
a
did.
normal annual.
We did. Yes, it still allows, if there's some kind of an emergency, which you're right, I don't quite know how you define who gets to decide what's an emergency. Effectively, the city manager does, because it has to have city manager approval to go up to 5% over before it would trip having to come to council as I read it right now, or read this proposal. The new language, just to be clear, where is it here, John? Do you have it?
Yep, I've got it. In special circumstances or situations of emergency nature, any office, department, or agency may increase their spending over the office's, department's, or agency's allocated budget by not more than 5% upon written approval of the city manager.
And we haven't decided yet about, the voters don't approve the budget. So, we approve an amount of money.
The voters are, so if I understand it correctly, and Ann, you're way more in the weeds in this than I am, but as I understand from your point, the voters are reading, hopefully, the budget. The budget has been provided, hopefully in an actual and complete form that's trustworthy, right, in the annual report for voters to review. And then you're saying the only thing the voters are actually voting on is the amount of tax that's being
The warning.
appropriated.
The warning, you don't say to them in a warning, but I say yes or no, do you approve this budget? You say to them, this amount of money,
Is the amount that will be raised by taxes.
that's right.
Right.
It's not a tax rate, which was the problem before.
Yes.
What language, I'm lost. What paragraph is it that is the sticking point with the voters?
B, 905B,
905B as in boy?
yes,
From the effective date of the budget, the amounts stated therein, as approved by the voters, become appropriated to the several offices, departments, or agencies, and for the purposes therein named.
we never approve a specific amount for each department. We
Is that-
certainly don't do that.
Well, don't forget though that we have to change the warning in March because we've not been giving the full amount of the
budget.
full budgeted number.
Right. Isn't that isn't the
Yes.
point here that we haven't been warning this appropriately?
Yes.
No.
And that what we
No, because even when you warn it appropriately, you're going to say that the amount of basically expenses are $7 million.
yes.
Of which 2 million have been provided through other sources, and that you as the citizens now agree that you will pay $5 million in taxes. So we only agree that we are paying $5 million in taxes. We are not agreeing, we don't vote on the 7 million, we don't know about the 2 million, you put it in the budget. I mean, you put it somewhere in the budget, but we don't approve
I want to
of
learn
the
more
budget.
about this. John, do you have an opinion about this? Because
Oh, yeah, you do vote that bottom line, the 5 million or whatever it is, it's going to approve to be raised by taxes.
Rick,
yeah,
can I make a suggestion?
yeah,
Kick this one to Mariah.
I think this is a good question.
And so Mariah just needs to do some wordsmithing to this. It needs to say something along the lines of, from the date of the annual meeting wherein voters approve the total amount identified by the city council when they passed their
I
fiscal
hear
year
you.
26,
Yeah.
27 budget. You know what I'm saying? You just give it to Brian and have him wordsmith it, and you can get both aspects of it in. So it's the council approving the budget and setting the bottom line, and it's the voters approving that bottom line. And you gotta get language that hits both of those. And it's doable, but not at this hour of the night,
Agreed.
when I need like at least a strong cup of coffee and a candy bar.
Okay. Anything else on the budget section or final, the recommendation to remove the subchapter 10 on taxation in its entirety? Yes.
Somehow or another, we need to find a way, and I don't know if it's in state statute anywhere. I believe that Jim said it could be possibly done by an amendment, but in conversation with the financial task force, the hope is that beginning July 1, that we will move to a quarterly payment structure in order to avoid taking the revolving fund from
We've talked about this.
So the way that works is the same way that the city went to the twice-a-year structure in the late 80s.
Okay.
You simply have a separate warrant article at the annual meeting asking whether the voters will approve changing the payment structure.
Okay.
Because Newport, like every other town in Orleans County, used to be once a year in October or November. And then in the late 80s, the city switched to the twice-a-year method, and it was simply a vote that for the next subsequent budget and all budgets thereafter until further change, something along those lines, it was changed to twice a year.
So we just need to make sure
Yeah.
that for March, it's a warrant article
Right, and.
to change it from 2 to 4.
Yeah,
And would that have an effect for
well,
26,
if it's,
when would it go in effect?
well, if, depending on how it's worded, if it's voted at the March 26 town meeting, it could go into effect for the tax year, 26-27 tax year.
The first payment of which would be
July.
due August 15th if we went to quarter.
Yeah,
So
I
it
mean,
would line up with the water sewer bill?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And in our case, what it would do is help the city to avoid
Yeah, I understand what
many tens of thousands
Right.
of dollars in interest fees.
Yeah, no other town in Orleans County has gone to even twice a year. In other parts of the state outside of the Northeast Kingdom, 4 times a year is actually pretty common.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, we all know that one of the things that we run into up here is we've always done it this way.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I mean, it's pretty common for the very reason that Rick
Right.
points out. It
Yeah,
improves cash
no,
flow and
absolutely.
reduces interest on borrowed money.
Yeah.
Okay,
The question is when you're timing because of mortgages and things like that. And also the consideration is there's also the other thing, which is 3 times a year.
There's a few,
Okay, but not tonight. We don't need to go down that road tonight.
No, just
All right.
thought I'd throw it at you.
Anything else we have to talk about tonight? Carter, any comments that you want to put in tonight before we take a vote on this?
I have a question.
Lori, please make it quick.
I'm sorry, no, it is quick. The 1004, 1004, the local option tax, is that, I know why that was discussed, is that
It's dropped.
I know it's dropped from here, but is there a state statute that allows for that?
Yes, there is.
yeah, so all that does is repeat the statute essentially. That too would require a separate town meeting vote. And there's a whole mechanism for it in state law, but it would have to be a warrant article. And,
Thank you.
you know, it's-
Carter, back to you. Any other final comments you want to make about this?
No, I mean, around the budget, sorry, I have a dog that has bells around her collar. Around the budget, I had chip-isms in my mind, but I will save that for a public hearing when there's more folks that are wanting to discuss this further. I think the time on the wall has, I've nipped my thoughts short, so pass it off to Kevin.
Okay, Kevin?
No, I think we've gone through it.
Okay. All right, John, anything final? Jim, any final words you want to say about this?
What I'm just sitting here thinking of, when I get done and you start appointing a clerk and treasurer, who are the 2 people downstairs gonna work for? The
It's
treasurer,
written
the
in
clerk?
this version that they work for the treasurer,
Okay.
Yeah, they work for the
the
clerk,
treasurer clerk.
just like they do now.
It does not propose a change.
Okay.
Okay, if all comments are made, then I would accept a motion empowering me to do my level best to create a new draft reflecting as fully as possible all the conversation we've had tonight, and to distribute that draft as soon as humanly possible, in order for folks in the community and council members, for that matter, to have a clean version upon which to reflect.
Do you want to also?
I'll make that motion.
I've got a motion. Do I have a second? Just a second, John.
I'll second.
And I have a second. Jennifer?
Second.
Do you want to amend that motion to include a consult with the attorney or?
No, it already includes that.
Yeah, okay.
It may not, the attorney consultation will not happen in time for me to include it in the new draft. But we can come back to that public meeting on the 5th
Okay.
with further reflection on those
And then you're
matters.
gonna put in like footnotes on that new draft in reference to like section 302?
It will not be footnoted. No, there's no way I'm gonna figure out the intricacies of trying to footnote this document in the next
Well,
2
no,
days.
no, but I'm saying, you said something about you were gonna put a disclaimer in about section 203 and the powers of the mayor and section 302, the
the
powers of the
research.
manager that's like under review or something.
Yeah, I will make some kind of a note or highlight it or something that just says,
Right,
council is still seeking more.
that's what I
Guidance
meant
on
by
this.
footnote.
Yeah,
Just
I don't
put-
do footnotes. It killed me in college too.
Okay.
Just put a paragraph in brackets.
Yeah, that's what I'll do, right?
So
Because
you're not
that's,
gonna have a final version?
I will have a draft of our current, most up-to-date version possible for consideration, and I hope to have it in your hot little hands before Christmas. Okay? Okay. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. Thank you all of you in the room, and those of you online for the conversation. And Carrie, you and I can touch it at least by phone tomorrow on your way to the airport and figure out how to do this. I think that's it, everybody. Oh no, it's not it. Hold on, I gotta do a couple of more formal things. Public comment. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment who still wants to do it?
No,
Yes.
Jennifer, go ahead.
One thing, thank you for getting a Newport City grant funding and active list. However, what's missing is the status of those grants. So we have no idea if they are open, if they're pending, if they're used in full. There
I'll
is-
ask Frank to double check, because the intention was it would have that, so.
It doesn't, it lists the grants and the amount, the city
Okay, I got your point.
obligation, yeah.
We'll
So
ask
it's,
Frank to look into it.
it's basically the terms of the grant when initiated and that's it.
yeah.
You got it. Anything else?
No, that's the only key thing, except, thank you for allowing at least decent discussion on the charter after your legal review.
You're welcome. Thank you for your patience with the whole evening. I'm just going to ask, any council members have either new or old business you'd like to bring up?
No.
Carter, Kevin, I assume you're okay? Hearing none.
All set.
Okay, next meeting of the council is scheduled for January 5th, 2026 at 6 p.m. It will include the formally warned public hearing on the charter. Do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
I have a motion, a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a second. All in favor say aye.
Right.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
January 10th, does it have to be a warned meeting? Because the
It has been
council is-
warned. It was warned
It
over
has
a
been
month
warned.
ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, and it will be formally warned as just a meeting for information.
Okay.
Thank you for asking. Motion to adjourn, Kevin?
Yes.
So moved. Do we? Second, all in favor say yes.